This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Sheist Podcast Network.
Hello once again, everybody. It is I, your host, Nick Sheist, and I'm back from hiatus. I think I must have done some bad podcast math at some point in the past because this is the official Season 2, Episode 8, and we've got some good episodes lined up as well, talking about Alien Resurrection and The Running Man. But for this episode, a friend of mine from the Sheist International Film Club, a Torontonian, to make it actually an international episode, stopped by to hang out and talk about a movie from the 90s that looked to catch lightning in a bottle with the popularity of Jim Carrey skyrocketing. And that movie is The Mask from 1994. So sit back, relax, and cue up the swing music.
This is my opportunity to just do whatever I want with no consequences.
I was confused.
I'm in this universe, so I'm all for it.
He sodomizes two guys with mufflers.
There's no way my mind would have known what he had done to them.
Yeah, you're a reporter. Do you not know that this guy works for the mafia?
Oh, that's a really fucked up thing to do.
Her bosom is spilling out of the top of her dress.
Always wondered what they were doing down there and how, the guy just, I assume, dies.
His face is pointing at me.
Just be like, this guy seems aggressive.
Felicia, thank you for joining me tonight. I'm glad we were able to find a time that worked out well for the both of us. I just wanted to do a little bit earlier because we got to go give a cat his diabetes medicine later tonight when this is done. So thank you for helping me move this about 30 minutes earlier than we were going to do.
No issues. All good.
And we're here today to talk about The Mask from 1994. And I never thought of this movie as a particularly bad movie. But when you had mentioned it, I was like, okay, I could kind of see why people would think this is a bad movie or why it would be classified in the bad movie realm. But it wasn't until all the people that we know in the film club shared their collective dislike of this film that I really started to think wow, this is a bad movie. So then I had to start looking and seeing okay, is this a movie that lands within the firmly solidified realm of, hey, this is bad, we all know it's bad? Or is this kind of I would say, Meet Joe Black, which has very good user reviews, but has very poor critic scores? And strangely enough, of all the movies we've talked about, this one is probably the most well-received across the board. And its Rotten Tomato score was super surprising to me because it has an 80% on the tomato meter, which was shocking. Wow. And the audience score is only a 68. So I was confused because if you look at the IMDb scores, it has a good user review at almost a 6.9. But the Metacritic score is a 56. That's the opposite of Rotten Tomatoes. So I have the Metascore kind of spreadsheet, not the spreadsheet, but the different kind of range of scores that got it to a 56. That's pulled up, and I haven't looked at it yet. I just pull it up so we can get to that later. But
Sounds good.
I want to know what it is about this movie that made you want to bring it to the table for this show? Because if I'm not mistaken, you went to film school and you have a background in film. So I'm very curious to hear how this one was something that you and I both like quite a lot, but a lot of the people that we know don't like whatsoever.
Yeah. Like you said, I didn't realize that this was a movie that people disliked. I grew up on this film. It was one that we had on VHS and we would pop it in all the time. And to me, it was always like a fun time. And the kids I grew up with, we all loved it. So when I became an adult and I would talk about, oh man, I grew up on The Mask. That's my favorite Jim Carrey. And they're like, I hate that movie. It sucks. And I was like, what? I've never heard that. Like, I could see why some people dislike or like other Jim Carrey films, but I always thought The Mask was like a neutral, fun one because it's pretty inoffensive and it's funny and it's fun and it's a good time. So the reason why I wanted to bring it to this show is because, like you mentioned in the film club, people were just kind of ripping on it, not in a bad way, but like in a way where I was like, oh, okay, I guess a lot of people don't like this movie. So maybe it's bad in the sense that it's not a badly made film, and I don't think it's a bad film, but it's not as loved as I thought it was. So I thought, let me talk about a film that I think is genuinely, like, I would call it a masterpiece, but others would disagree.
And I guess, did you rewatch it for the purposes of this episode? And what was the gap between now and the last time you rewatched it? Because for me, it might be close to 30 years since the last time I've seen this. I probably saw it in the late 90s, but for me, like, there was a huge gap between this time and the last time.
Mm-hmm. There was less of a gap. I would say it's been less than 10 years since I saw it. I have a younger brother who's 16 years younger than me. And like I said, this is like a family movie that all my siblings were into. And when he became of age, we were like initiated him with The Mask and he loved it. So we would rewatch it and watch it. But because it had been like at least, I'm going to say 8 years, I was a little bit worried when I put it on. And I was like, oh no, maybe I'm not going to like this anymore. And I think I liked it even more this watch.
Okay.
So
I mean,
I don't know what it is.
I had a really good time with it. And because it had been so long for me, I too had this fear that this was only going to be something I liked as a child, and I just wouldn't be able to get over some of those hurdles. And I feared that it was going to be like so dated that that was going to be a problem. And I mean, some of that stuff is dated, but for the most part, I think it holds up well. I don't question like the world it's taking place in very much.
Exactly.
I'm not like, oh, okay, this feels so old. It feels like a story that would work now as well.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I thought while watching it was like, this, of all the movies that are getting remade, like they just remade White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah.
And that's a movie that did not need to get remade at all.
No.
But this is a movie that kind of just cashed in on an IP that nobody was using and struck while the iron was hot with Jim Carrey, because he finished In Living Color in 94. He had Ace Ventura, which was massively successful, and also Dumb and Dumber in this same year. So it was just huge year. And so The Mask just was looking to take advantage of the fact that Carrey was a hot commodity and put him in a vehicle where his comedy was going to lead the way. And even though that is very much the case with this, like, it feels like his performance is very much at home with some of the other things that we've seen from him. It doesn't feel like a huge departure for him, even though the material might be. And, you know, I've read a couple of the graphic novels or the collected volumes of The Mask, and it's incredibly violent and very much rated R. Yeah. Very, very bloody. So like watching this and kind of I don't know. I had my detective hat on, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
how much are they willing to give to the adult audiences that are going to see this, and how much of this is going to be like mass appeal PG-13 stuff. And so I kind of had a closer eye on that, and it's violent, but it's cartoonishly violent.
Very much so.
The
Yeah.
comics are violent. And I would be
Okay.
very curious to see this story told again in a rated R fashion. So
Hmm.
I don't know that that's going to happen, but with the popularity of comic book movies right now, you never know.
Exactly. And I'm like, I guess we kind of have that with the Deadpool stuff where it's like comical but very rated R. Um, I guess, and this is just entirely on my side. I envision him as the mask. So I'm wondering who is as, physically capable of the role because it's such a physical role. You can be funny, but you might not be a physical comedian. And I don't know, that seems to be a bit of a lost art in terms of comedians nowadays. They're not as physical, or at least I am not, they're not top of mind for me. No one's coming top of mind.
There's a couple guys I've seen do stand up that have a very physical style, but I wouldn't say that they're a big enough draw at all. These are
Yeah.
guys that like work comedy clubs, but like don't have specials necessarily. They're not on TV. They don't have the kind of like fingerprint in the industry to put them in that position. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting things I read about this film was how the director, Chuck Russell, decided to kind of leave some of the CGI type of stuff
Hmm.
alone because of Carrey's physical acting abilities. And like there's a lot of dancing in this, there's a lot of
Yeah.
movement, and it's not physically demanding in the way that he's like taking a lot of bumps like you would see in like a Captain America film, right?
Yeah.
It's not that kind of action film, but I would venture to say that this is still very much an action comedy.
Hmm. Very much.
Um, and so you're right. I don't know that somebody that isn't Jim Carrey could pull this off. And I mean, I know he like retired and everything, but like
Yeah.
if you got him a script where they're like, we want to make a rated R version of this and do like Deadpool with this character, I don't know. Come back for that, Jim. Like
Please.
you don't have to go out on Sonic 2. He's good in that, but you don't have to go out like that.
He really doesn't. And I think it would draw an audience. People would be curious,
Yeah,
you know?
I would be. And
Yeah. Oh, I would be there.
this movie does have a sequel that I think I watched once with
Yeah.
this Jamie Kennedy, right? Son of
Yeah.
Mask.
I haven't seen all of it. I've seen parts, and I think um at that point, I don't know what year that came out. I assume it's early 2000s. It's where like the animation and the CG is very weird. Where like it works in this film, the whatever, special effects they did use, but in that one it was a little too cartoony. And it just wasn't, it wasn't the mask. It was a whole entirely different thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I don't know this necessarily like some of it is a little CGI, but this is
Mhm.
like the very early days of computer generated stuff. And as much that they could do still with traditional like cartoon
Mhm.
cell drawings like they did with Roger Rabbit or Cool World, they did a lot of
Yeah.
that still here. And I think the movie benefits from it, especially because the type of character that Stanley Ipkiss is in this story. And
Very much.
part of me was almost like, I couldn't quite remember. I was like, is he an artist? Like, is he a cartoonist? Because that would explain like his penchant for cartoon stuff. And you do see there's a small figurine of one of those like cartoon wolves that's leaning against the
Yeah.
lamppost that he has in his bedroom area.
Bedroom, yeah.
And he opens a drawer at some point, is either in his office or in his house. And it's like there's a book of like cartoon sketches. And he does have that collection of VHS cartoons, like classic
Mhm.
cartoons that he just puts on when he gets home. So he does obviously like present outwardly like he likes this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem like it's a huge part of the character in a way that Gabriel Byrne's character in Cool World is like, he's actually a cartoonist and he wrote this comic book. And so that makes sense of like why he's part of that. So just something small that I noticed when, I haven't watched this since I was a child, basically. So watching it as an adult was a different experience, but I still liked it quite a lot. And I was curious,
Oh, God.
like, do you remember how this movie was marketed? Because we typically look at the trailer and I don't remember, like, was this just, hey, it's Jim Carrey, come see it because it's Jim Carrey? Like, I don't remember knowing much about the Mask character at all at the time when this movie came out.
Yeah. So this is 94. So admittedly, I would have been like 3 or 4 when it came out. So I definitely would have seen it once it came to video, like home video. And I think it's just because my parents were really into Jim Carrey. They loved In Living Color. So it was bought. And then just as a way, as a 90s kid, 80s, 90s kids, I think we can all relate. All our parents just sat us in front of TVs, like pop in movie here and there. So The Mask was like on rotation. I don't know how it was marketed, because I just knew it as someone, like everyone knew about The Mask. Everyone had seen it. Like nowadays, there's people who haven't seen it, but growing up, I don't think I knew a single person who hadn't seen The Mask. You know, like you said, The Mask came out at the same time as like Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and those were like the trifecta of Jim Carrey, early 90s Jim Carrey. So, and it's, he has some stuff that's very out there, like Ace Ventura, and I think this is oddly enough, slightly more dialed back because he has the duality of Stanley Ipkiss, who's just a very relaxed, chill dude, and then The Mask. So I think this is like the beginning of, his later career where he was doing the more serious stuff. So I have to assume this is just marketed as like a Jim Carrey vehicle. I don't know that I didn't know growing up that it was based on a comic, and I don't know if it was marketed that way or if it was just Jim Carrey The Mask.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
this was a original comic that I think it was Titan, maybe Dark Horse, that
Okay.
was written by John Arcudi in 1991, and the collected volume was 93. The ones that I have were published in 93, collected volumes of Mask Returns as well. And so this is like right before the movie gets made, but also, I'm thinking of superhero movies, and like Batman and Superman dominate the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But then in comic book print, like the 90s were kind of like the heyday of the new X-Men. So
Yeah.
the Mask, even though like I collected and read comics when I was a kid in that era as well, it wasn't a book that I was aware of until I got much older. And then in reading the book, I'm like, yeah, there's probably a good reason for that, because
Yeah.
it's super duper violent. And it's probably a good thing I wasn't reading that as like a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
But interesting to see that it was kind of at the forefront of starting to adapt comics into films. And obviously not the first one, but one of the first ones to really not just take a comic book character and try to adapt it for the screen, but one of the first ones to try to understand how to make the source material translate visually to the screen in a way that doesn't abandon like what it looks like on the page. And like, not to take anything away from the Superman and Batman films of that era, but they're made to look like the real world. And almost everything about this is made to look like a cartoon version of the real world. So I really appreciated that just creative integrity in adapting an IP that probably a lot of people didn't know about at the time.
Yeah, for sure. It's very much not, it's Edge City, that's where it's set. And it doesn't, if you're trying to look at it, it doesn't really resemble any city that we know of. It's just kind of like a blank slate. And it has a lot of like 30s and 40s American culture in there, with even like the zoot suit that he's wearing
Mm-hmm.
and like the jazz clubs that they're attending. That like at the 90s, that wasn't really a thing. People went to clubs, but they didn't go to those style clubs. Those had kind of died out at that point. So it's very much kind of a nostalgic setting, but clearly like most of the people are kind of dressed like the 90s. But it's not super obvious that it's the 90s. So it's just kind of its own alternate universe, which I like. And when I was watching it again, because last year for the first time I finally watched Darkman, the Raimi, and I was like, oh, this would make like a perfect double bill, because they have a very similar vibe to it, and the kind of anti-hero, if you want to call the Mask hero of some sorts. He can be, not really. Same with Darkman though. And I just think those are two very 90s films, but they're also timeless because I don't feel they're super dated. Maybe Darkman a little bit more, but yeah, I think those two mesh really well. So if you like Darkman and you haven't seen The Mask, I would say watch The Mask, and vice versa as well.
Well, that's usually a question that I ask way later in the show, but you got to it now. So like she said, if you like The Mask, check out Darkman, and vice versa. And Darkman's a film, I think that the comic came after the film. It was published as like a sequel.
Okay.
And I think there's a Darkman 2, but it's
Is
been
there?
so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's been so long since I've actually seen Darkman that I don't want to comment too far down that road. But I do remember it being kind of like what was it, The Shadow also, and the Phantom, I believe, the Billy Zane purple suit.
Yeah, okay.
So those are a lot of like similar movies that were all coming out during the mid 90s, trying to like find an intellectual property where it's like, hey, this has like some fan base that we can adapt it. And I'm sure they're looking at the success that Superman had in the late 70s to early 80s, and then how Batman was able to capitalize on that and really work like that 80s to, what was it, 89? And then before they really got into like the sequels that started casting different characters, and Jim Carrey ends up in one of those sequels as well. But I digress. Let's take a look at the trailer and see what The Mask was trying to tell us, and if this was really geared for children or if it was supposed to be for adults that are Jim Carrey fans at that point. Because I grew up with Living Color as well. And that's where I knew him from, as Fire Marshal Bill. So that was something that, as soon as he started making movies, I was like, oh, I know this guy. Like, I have to watch. Before we move on in the show, it's time for a quick word from our sponsor. If you're in the mood for a night of dinner and dancing, head on down to your local Cuban Pete's Salsa and Salsa. They've got all the Cuban classics completely Americanized and franchised, like roast pork, Cuban tamales, fried beef, fried bananas, banana fufu, flan, and of course, the famous Cubano sandwich. Plus, they have a variety of spicy salsas that will have you creating new dance moves as you desperately clench your ass cheeks together on the dance floor. Hooray! Cuban Pete's Salsa and Salsa has their newest location now open in the bright and shiny Edge City. So stop on by and make your stomach go chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom. All right, can you see that okay?
Yep.
All right, I think the sound should be on.
This is the story of Stanley Ipkiss.
Stanley, you are the nicest guy. Really, you are.
Yeah. His job is at the bank.
You're 40 minutes late. Now, that's the same as stealing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dickey. It'll never happen again.
He loves his dog.
Come on, bro. Give him to me. Drop it.
He's polite to his landlord.
Ipkiss, do you have any idea what time it is?
You know, Mrs. Penman?
What?
Nothing.
And the most exciting thing in his life are his pajamas. But now,
Hey, you! What are you doing down there? I'm just looking for my mask!
all that is about to change. Because Stanley Ipkiss is not the man he used to be. Spoken!
His landlord did not hesitate to whip out the shotgun.
She really did.
It's like it brings your innermost desires to life. You become some sort of love-crazy wild man.
I want him here tomorrow, alive.
Now you have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Do ya? Punks? Jim Carrey is
That's the guy.
Hello!
The Mask. Ooh, somebody's
Featuring swing music from Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah. It's a trailer.
It is. And when the movie first started, I was like, do I not remember this movie at all? Because they're
Yeah.
like in the middle of the river or some lake or something, and I'm not quite recalling where it takes place. I thought it was San Francisco, but then it's LA definitely a few times. Like I think the bridge at the end, I'm like, okay, that's definitely LA, but that whole background is fake. I was like, damn, they made Los Angeles look really nice there. And it starts with like, I couldn't quite tell. I was like, are these guys salvagers? Because they're working down in the ocean, and then they stumble across this treasure chest, and the guy who's down there has like a pry bar with him, so he's working to open it, but then a pipe gets dropped from a boat and crushes that poor guy, and then his story ends as the mask floats to the top. And so I was like, what were they doing? Were they like putting in like phone lines or like power cables or something under the water? Because it just kind of throws you into the middle of this. Like it didn't have to happen there. This could have been like, oh, this is like it falls off a garbage truck, or they find it in an antique store, or so many different ways to start this. I wasn't 100% sure of why they chose to go with like these disposable throwaway characters with no names. I don't even know if they have speaking lines. And then they just kill this guy unceremoniously with like a giant pipe in the middle of the ocean. So I was like, okay, I'm not 100% sure I remember what happens or how he gets his mask at this point. And there's a scene later where he first kind of sees what is what he thinks is a dead body floating. And in watching it back, I always thought, oh no, it wasn't really a dead body. But in that scene, I'm like, no, that's a body. And by the time he gets his hands on it, it's not a body anymore. It's just like a pile of garbage. And I know that they are trying to tell us that he thinks it's a body to give him an excuse to jump in there and to actually like find the mask. But at the same time, in the background, like there's mob activity going on, and it would be completely fitting for that to be a dead body. So I'm very curious if that is something that just didn't test well with audiences. They're like, no, this is a Jim Carrey movie. We can't be showing a floating corpse in, the opening of this film and have it carry the PG-13 type of label that we want it to. But it would have fit very much thematically with what's going on in the story if this were a body that were disposed of by why can I not think of his name, Dorian or his boss, who was Nikki, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I always remember the opening because I also always wondered what they were doing down there and how like the guy just, I assume, dies down there and is never talked about. I have to assume, because everything you're saying is very correct, and I think it would make sense that they were either they could have just cut that out and he could have found it any other way. He could have still found it in the water, without that opening scene, or it could have been, mob activity. And I'm wondering if there was probably more and it just got cut out just to refrain from having too much at the opening, because I remember when rewatching it, I was like, oh, this opening, this setup is very quick and brief, and all of a sudden it's like the mask, and then we get into Stanley Ipkiss and his life, and I was like, oh, okay, so you're showing us that the mask is in the water, but there's no explanation as to why this mask is there, why it's in like a treasure chest, and why those people are down there trying to open a treasure chest in random, I assume, lake water, maybe it's ocean water, but doesn't look like it. So, yeah, I have to assume there was some editing, and as watching it, and what you mentioned before with the comic book stuff or the animation stuff, I noticed a lot of Looney Tunes memorabilia, either like when he opens his desk, there's a Looney Tunes like comic there, and in his apartment there's some Looney Tunes stuff. I was like, is this WB associated? And I don't remember. And then on the trailer we see WB, and I was like, oh, okay,
big Warner logo right there.
Yeah, so we're prefacing that this is for a younger audience, and it's not going to get darker than it needs to be. And it's really not, like, rewatching it. I watched it with my 3-year-old. I wanted to test to see if it was scary or not. And there was times where she looked kind of worried, but like then the animation would start and he would be the mask, and she thought it was so entertaining. She loved Milo. So it's very much, it's not a kid's movie, but it's definitely kid friendly.
I loved Milo too. And it was one of my favorite parts of rewatching this. And I couldn't tell, like, my dog was next to me on the couch, and like there was a couple times where it looked like she was watching, and she's not really the type to respond to like dogs on the screen, but every now and then she'll sit down and she'll like actually look like she's watching the TV. And I was like, I wish she could go like find my keys when I lose them. That would be very helpful. But it's strange that you mentioned that this like is definitely kid friendly. And I would say more geared towards being palatable for kids. And the year after this, Spawn the Mask animated series, which ran for 2 seasons as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was already kind of like in the plan to, we're going to do this. And then like, hey, you know, we have the foundation in place to make an animated series here. And, you know, it's running in 1995. So it didn't, you know, it only lasted 2 seasons. So it wasn't hugely popular. But in watching the film as an adult, I see that it's like, it's a rated R movie that is wearing like a PG-13 jumpsuit. Like, it's so easily could become rated R. And there's a lot of scenes that I think walk that line very closely.
Oh yeah.
And
100%.
I don't want to jump ahead like too far, but there's a scene where he like basically becomes like Pepe Le Pew, and that cartoon character, I mean, for a long time it was like, oh, like it's funny that he's constantly like assaulting this woman. And when he gets to that moment with Cameron Diaz in the park, like he's very forward the whole time, and she's very much like not into it. And there's only one scene earlier in the film where he's watching Ben Stein explain, like, you know, how the mask works in psychology and how the like we all wear masks and it hides the id. And you know, when Seth and Michelle did their episode on like super amazing, super fantastic movies, like one of the bonus episodes for Movie Friends, they did Drop Dead Fred, which also like mid-90s kind of same cartoony, zany, borderline rated R film. And in that, when he asked like for comments, I had written something for him talking specifically about how Fred is the representation of the little girl's id. Like all of his behaviors are her. So it's very interesting to then watch this movie again from very close to the same time that digs into like who the mask really is. Because very early on, you like Stanley doesn't know that this happened. He wakes up thinking it was a dream.
Yeah.
When he figures it out, he starts to remember, but there is a sort of disconnect that like all these things are happening beyond his control. And then as he comes to terms with the fact that like it is him making these decisions, it changes the way that I viewed Stanley, because you see him presented to us as, even in the trailer, it's like, oh, like he's a dork, and like his desk is broken, and he physically acts strange, and he's not good with women, and he lives in a shitty studio apartment where his landlord busts his balls about like a curfew that he shouldn't even have. And so it's so much of like, this guy's a loser. And then he puts on the mask and it's like, you're not a loser anymore. Like the mask itself basically grants him the power to do anything he wants.
Very much. Yeah.
There was a poll going around on Twitter months back, which was like, oh, pick the mask and you get the powers associated with it. And it was like Iron Man, Batman, etc. And not a lot of people were picking the mask. And I was like, I don't think that many people really know like what the mask is.
Yeah.
Like it's basically like the Green Lantern's power, where your imagination is the limit for what you can do. And Stanley is not really exploring like the full potential of it, but just the little bit that he does really shows you like how big of a difference there is between Stanley Ipkiss, the bank worker who gets rejected and like politely shot down after buying concert tickets for a lady that he has a crush on. And then, oh, okay, like I'm going to be the nice guy and let you go with your friend. And, you know, that's who we get introduced to. And then as soon as he's the mask, he's just doing whatever he wants. He dresses better. He's more confident. Like he walks tall. He's got these big shiny teeth. So he's always like smiling, always has energy. And we see him walk into like a gang of thugs, which apparently there was like a deleted scene, but why these guys are all like wearing vests with no shirts and like, you know, they look like the Village People, but out on the street. And they ask him for the time. And I guess there was a deleted scene earlier where they like assault him and rob him and take his watch, which is why he goes to his landlord. She's like, do you know what time it is, Ipkiss? And he says no, because he just got his watch stolen. So that would explain like why he's like so down on himself by the time he gets back to his apartment. But they end up going into the alleyway and he sets up like this funhouse booth. And like there's like he whips a used condom out of his pocket. And so like something small like that, where we see the version of Stanley that we see is not a ladies' man, is not getting laid. But this guy, the mask, has a used condom from I don't want to know where, but hopefully just his imagination.
It's the hope.
It's the hope. And in that scene later, he builds a Tommy gun out of a balloon animal. And he just unloads it into the street and doesn't hit anybody. Like everybody gets away safely, but it lets you know that like he's dangerous and can kind of craft things that are going to allow him to manipulate the physical world in a way that is going to make him a serious threat. But also it led me to believe that it was setting up something that didn't happen. Like he was going to become drunk with power in a certain way that was going to like compromise who the core character was. And so that's a much different story about, you know, someone who is a loser who then gets power and kind of like turns into this other person because they've been shit on by so many people. And, you know, if you go that route, it's not really like a Jim Carrey comedy anymore. So I understand why you bring in Dorian and you have like a real bad guy and you let him wear the mask. But this is something that I don't know why I connected to it deeper this time, other than I'm just coming from a place where I can see all of the adult stuff happening rather than being a kid and being like, oh, it's funny. I'm like, okay, well, that's a condom, but like, I'm not really thinking too deeply about why that's something that he wants to present in that moment. Like what's what's there in the writing of the character that is digging into Stanley that makes his subconscious perform this in this situation. So there's a lot of stuff like that, and I think he breaks the fourth wall like the first time he becomes the Mask too, and that's something that we see in Deadpool now as well.
I know,
that works with great effect, and that's something that's in how Deadpool is written as a character in the comics as well. And I don't know. It's been a while since I read the comics, and I wanted to sit down and read them today, but I just ran out of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's something that the character does on the page as
or
well.
If it's Jim Carrey kind of thing
Yeah.
that he brought. I assumed it kind of was, because I think he does that a lot, especially around that time where he would sort of fully break the fourth wall or be hinting at the audience, and we know that he's hinting and acknowledging. But like everything you're saying is super valid, and it's interesting the way that Stanley is presented to us. He's very much the nice guy, and you're automatically meant to feel sorry for him because we don't see anything wrong with him, but he's being shut down. But he always has a kind of a moment where he wants to, assert himself, whether it's with that woman where he's like, well, there's only 2 tickets, or with his boss who's giving him a hard time. And with the landlady, he always just is on the verge of asserting himself and putting his foot down and telling people how he actually feels. And the Mask allows him to do that. The Mask would allow anyone to actually be not necessarily who they want to be, but be like, this is my opportunity to just do whatever I want with no consequences while you're the Mask. The consequences come when you take off the mask.
Yeah, I would say like a good point of comparison for that would be Hollow Man. Like you see Kevin Bacon, who is like, he's smart, like he's charming, but like underneath all that, like he's really this other person. And then as you remove him and he gets anonymity through being invisible, then you see the depths of like who his character is and the lengths that he's willing to go to get what he wants. And maybe that's something that is present with Stanley, but they always want to bring it back to him being, the hero. And it could be a Jim Carrey thing, because even when he's the villain in Batman, it's like he's still a fairly charismatic villain. He's never like Two-Face in that movie is more of like the I'm gonna, flip a coin and kill this guy type of villain. Jim Carrey's Riddler is more like, I just want to like steal everybody's brain power and make myself smarter.
Yeah.
It's like a different kind of villain,
kind of like,
but
mischievous, which is the same thing with this. And I'm sure we'll get into the powers from the Mask, but like you said, he never really comes across as evil. It's more just like, I now have the power to right some wrongs and get revenge, as opposed to going out of his way to hurt people who haven't done anything to him. It's always kind of a revenge situation.
Yeah, and I'll ask you right now, since we're getting into some of the more detailed stuff. Like when we first meet him at the bank, it's his coworker who he buys the concert tickets for, with like the expectation that they're going to go together. And then she shuts him down, and like she wants to go with her friend, and he kind of just takes it on the chin, and it's meant to show us that like he's weak and he's not assertive, and that he doesn't do well with women. But that's something that I felt that like maybe definitely was dated in terms of watching it 30 years down the line, in that he feels entitled to something from her because of getting the concert tickets. And they don't get into like what the previous arrangement was, or if like she had agreed to go with him before that and he changed her mind or anything. But it is this thing of like, oh, he's presented as the nice guy who gets shit on here, but he's also, that's a character that's like, oh, I bought concert tickets expecting to get something in return from her. And that's not necessarily like, hey, this is a nice guy. So it's interesting to see the writing in 1994 using kind of like a very tropey way to get that across very early on. And I think right after that is when like Cameron Diaz gets introduced, and she comes in a red dress, and then she's bending over and her bosom is spilling out of the top of her dress. And I see what the filmmaker's doing. I mean, you put Cameron Diaz in that role for a reason, but like she's bending over for no reason. I'm like,
oh no, yeah,
she's like touching like the strap of her shoe, but she's not like tightening her shoe. She's not adjusting it. She's not drying herself off. She's just like bending over and like lightly touching it. So it's like, okay, we want to just like show off her cleavage here and have Stanley and the other guy like fall over each other because she walks in. And again, it's like, okay, like good looking woman walks in the room. The nice guy's like, oh my God, she's so beautiful, right? But it's like, nope, this woman that I've been trying to, get to go on a date with me that I just got like devastated by. Who's she? I don't even remember her because this new woman walked in the door. Again, like that's not necessarily the behavior of Mr. Nice Guy in hindsight.
Yes, very much. And it's like, I think that's like a very memorable scene of the film, and it's shot differently. It's kind of, the classic slow zoom in, and there's the lighting behind just to highlight her body and her. And it's only for that, and you definitely don't do that anymore. And I know it's kind of played for comedic effect as well, because it's, obviously the super hot woman walks in and everything in the room stops and all the attention's on her. You definitely can't do that anymore. But I did find it funny because when you watch something like that, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot a lot of movies used to do this. And sometimes it wasn't for comedic effect. It was just like, this is how they're going to have the female character enter the scene.
Yeah, it was definitely something that was very it was very prominent in the 90s for sure, and probably in the 80s as well. But just like a character who's there only like specifically as a love interest to like further the plot of the main character, because she does have a change of heart or a change of like her moral compass at some point when she realizes the guy that she's been dating is, legitimately evil. But it takes that to get to that point. But not too far after Cameron Diaz is introduced in the bank as well, the Peggy Brandt, the reporter, Amy Yazbek, she comes in, and she too is now a new love interest for Stanley. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, does he end up with her? I was like, no, I don't think so. And then the way they interact is oh my God, it's Peggy Brandt. And I wrote to her and she published my article. And then
he's
she's
Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, she's playing. Yeah, exactly. The article title, Mr. Nice Guy. When
Nice
it's
Guy.
like, okay, so is this really what a nice guy is? And that what like so many women around the city are really like wanting out of their man? And Peggy too, in that moment, says to him, oh yeah, me too. Like so many women want this. Like I'm one of them, right? And so it's just like another instance of that. And so when she like betrays him in the end, I kind of forgot that happened, but I was like, oh, okay, like this totally makes sense. And I get it. Like she's like, hey, they're paying me. Like I need to, I need to pay my bills. Like I don't really care about you. I don't know you that well. And maybe without actually explicitly saying it, she's like, I see through your bullshit. And so I'm just going to take the 50 G's and pay off my condo.
I was like, respect. And they do set it up that she is like, she does have a couple scenes on her own. Like they're very brief, but because she's a reporter, and they do set up that she's trying to advance her career. She's trying to get past, the frilly Mr. Nice Guy type of column and get real articles to write. So it's not like a surprise that she betrays him, at least as an adult watching it, even though I'd seen it. But I was like, this makes sense for that character to do that. And I was like, you know what? Good for you.
Yeah. Hey,
do what you need to.
I mean, yeah, if it was like, here's some stranger that I don't really know who's going to confess all their crimes to me, and I mean, it's the mob. I don't know, whatever. Like they gave me 50,000 in cash, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go put a down payment on a house. I live in California; it's expensive out here.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and she still does care enough because when they do grab him, she's like, "Oh, you said you wouldn't hurt him," and Dorian's like, "I lied," and she's like, "Well, okay, see you then, I guess."
Yeah, you're a reporter. Do you not know that this guy works for the mafia? Like,
Yeah.
come on, you're obviously not a great reporter on top of things. But you had mentioned too that I think you said it was your younger brother who that you
Hmm.
wait until came of age to show him the
Yeah.
mask. So I'm curious, what age is that?
Well, I think it was around 5 or 6. I would say even, yeah, 5 the most is how old he was. Just because it was something we were so obsessed with, but we knew his personality. And oddly enough, for both him and my daughter watching it, it's that opening scene that kind of scared both of them at first. And I remember we when we showed my younger brother, we kind of sat by him and watched his reaction to the opening scene. You could see that he was scared. And we were like, okay, no, just sit through it though, because it's going to get fun. And then it did. It was very fun, but he wasn't scared after that opening scene and he loved it. And it was like, we had to rewatch it and watch it gladly. But once you get past that initial scene, I wonder maybe if it was like we have already talked about it, but if it was a lot more gruesome or intense, and that's why it was cut down because it seems very brief. But then with my daughter, I was like, I remember it being very tame. So I was like, she should be fine. And we watch a lot of stuff around her. If it's too violent, we will, be like, okay, this is for later when she's asleep. But she watched it and she thought it was, I could see her laughing at stuff too. So it's like, it's weird that you have such a range of audience is that can enjoy it, but it is not a straight up kids movie. It's very much not a kids movie. It's just friendly towards kids.
Yeah, I would say like the way the humor is written makes me think it's geared towards adolescent males
Yeah.
just because of the way that like Stanley's character is specifically. And in the 90s, like you're telling like 12 and 13-year-old boys, oh, if you do something nice for a girl that you like, she's automatically supposed to like you back, right? And so that to me is coming from a place of like immature
Very
male
much.
perspective. So that's why I'm like, okay, I see it being like PG-13 and being geared towards that audience. And that's probably why the cartoon came right after that. And I think it was a CBS show. So it's like you're kind of getting that built-in audience and then hanging on to them for as long as you can before they age out into like, okay, now we're like actual teenage boys and like we're not thinking about this stuff anymore.
Exactly. I mean, Stanley is immature himself, and his
Absolutely.
coworker friend is always trying to push him and be like, let's go do this and that. Because he seems to have a life of his own. I don't know how he's getting into these clubs or whatnot, but he's out there doing his thing and he's always being like, you can come join me. But there's no kind of mention, and it's not the type of film that would go into a huge backstory of Stanley Ipkiss, but there's no mention that he's ever been with someone romantically. He just seems like a single dude um, that doesn't have much experience. But then all of a sudden there's like 3 women that he's involved with kind of, in some sort of capacity in this film. But the reason why he's so juvenile as a mask is because he's immature himself. He doesn't seem to have that much life experience. He just seems to be kind of a straight-laced banker.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it strikes me as like the fantasy of like an adolescent male that
Yeah.
like, oh, I got shot down by this girl, but then like the hot blonde walks in and she's into me. And then this other girl comes in and she's into me. And that also would explain like the condom in the pocket, like
Yeah.
whipping it out when he's making balloon animals. Like this is what the little brain thinks about when like fantasizing about what it would be like to unleash, that dormant side of you that has been stomped on by so many other people.
Exactly.
The guy, Peter Greene, who plays Dorian, has he
So good.
ever been a good guy in a movie ever.
I've
don't
never
know. Every
I've
time I see
never
him, I'm
seen
like,
him.
villain.
Oh yeah. And like I've seen him in other things. And like I guess his other really big he has like two other big movies. Obviously we have Pulp Fiction that he's in, and then
Bad guy.
Clean Shaven. And like because I grew up on The Mask, anytime I see him, I'm like, oh, it's Dorian. So like I think he's in something else also that he popped in, and he wasn't. He played a bad guy. And I was like, this guy, it's weird because is he has a he kind of has like the Cillian Murphy look where he has a very particular face.
Yeah, sharp
And
cheekbones.
it just kind of translates as villain. And I think that's why Cillian Murphy always gets cast as kind of like a bad or a weird dude as opposed to like a romantic comedy style, because they would just be like, this guy seems aggressive. I don't think it translates.
His face
I'm sure
is
he's a
pointing
nice
at
guy.
me.
Exactly. I'm sure he's probably the nicest guy, but or not. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions, but yeah, he very much has that face. But I don't know what happened post the 90s, because I don't recall seeing him in anything post the 90s. If
Yeah, he
he's
was in
still
Blue
doing stuff.
Streak, I think, also as one of the bad guys in Blue Streak, which is the Martin Lawrence and I think it's Steve Zahn. Police like
Oh,
buddy comedy. No, Luke Wilson, I'm sorry. Luke Wilson and Martin Lawrence. And I mean, yeah, his character only has one name and it's Deacon. I mean, that sounds like a bad guy to me, but it's been a while since I've seen Blue Streak as well. But he's been working. He's had a long career. He's done some like TV here and there since then, but he's involved in a few of my favorite scenes in the film. And one of them is they do the bank heist. They fail because Ipkiss beats them to it. And the cops show up and they immediately get into a shootout with the cops. And then they just kind of cut away from that shootout. But then when they get back to the club, his buddy, Doc, who is like the genius of the crew that's, supposedly the one who's got this all mapped out, and he sent Cameron Diaz in to scope out the bank vault with the camera in her purse, etc. He gets shot and is bleeding to death in office of the, what is it, the Coco Bongo?
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be the Copacabana, I imagine.
Yeah.
So he's bleeding to death up there, and they're explaining like what went wrong. And he's like applying pressure to the bullet wound, and Dorian's just like, give me a cigarette. And he like tries to give him a cigarette and light it for him. Like, get him to a doctor. Or, like, I mean, his name is Doc. Maybe he was the doctor, so that's not good. But there's so many things you can do for him there besides trying to give him a cigarette as he's bleeding to death all over your couch. I thought that was a very interesting choice, because I don't know that it's intentionally meant to show that like Dorian doesn't really care about his people. Like, there's no like, hey, let's get this guy fixed up. It's no, I'm mad because the bank heist went wrong, and here, like a cigarette will fix your bullet wound. I mean, maybe if you light it and you can like cauterize the wound with it or something, but he's lost a lot of blood at that point.
Yeah.
It's not going well for Doc.
Yeah, I love that scene too. I kind of read it maybe differently than you, though, with that character in particular. Like, I agree that he doesn't seem to care about anyone else on his team, but he did seem upset when he realized he was dead, and that I think he just wasn't thinking straight. And that's why he's like, oh, you're fine. You're fine. Just have a cigarette and just relax while we get you some
Smoke
help
it
at some
off.
point. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's a choice. But it's so weird because that's such a differently, like the tone is very different in that scene. And it kind of reminded me of something like King of New York with Christopher Walken, where he's very much like the boss and he isn't as emotional, and he's just very kind of factual about if someone gets shot, well, okay, that sucks, move on, we got to keep going. But yeah, Dorian is such an interesting character, and he has some of my favorite lines later on when there's a character shift. But even like, it's interesting that he could have been the only bad guy, but there is a one above him. And watching it again, I always wondered, I was like, why did we need that extra? Because he could have just been doing stuff in the club without the extra pressure on him. Because even the scene where his boss kind of hits the golf ball off his face, I was like, oh, that if this wasn't The Mask and this was in a different movie, that would have been a very, very intense scene. And it is still intense, but it's not as intense as it could have been, because that's wild to, put a golf ball off someone's face.
Yeah,
So,
like it definitely has like those mob elements, which is why I brought that thing up earlier about like seeing the dead body floating. And like in that scene where Dorian is getting chastised, you have a pretty good understanding that he's not about to get his head caved in by that 9-iron that the guy is swinging. But realistically, if you miss a little bit with that golf club, you're going to do more than like just leave him with a bloody lip there on the side. And so, like you said, like that could be intense, but we don't get enough of Nico at any point really to make it seem like that scene is actually going to end in the worst possible way. So you're always kind of like, okay, there is somebody above him who he doesn't like. And I think maybe it's just meant to be some kind of parallel between Stanley and Dorian, is like they're both looking upward. And Dorian's a guy who is not really like the nerdy, quiet type. Like he's got the good looking girlfriend, he's got the club, he dresses nice, he's got money. So he's got all these things that like Stanley doesn't have. But even so, he's still got somebody above him is telling him what to do and is controlling him. And it's like how each of these guys go about approaching that in their lives. Like, what do you do when these outside pressures are pushing down on you, and how these two different types of characters deal with it. And, ultimately, I heard something where I think it was a writer who was talking about how you form like real heroes and villains, and it's like how the character responds to adversity or when something bad happens to them. Like the villain, when something bad happens to them, wants to make that something bad happen to everybody else. The hero wants to not let that happen to anybody else. And so like the breaking it down like that, that's kind of like where you're at. You get these two different people, they both wear the mask at some point, and you see what they want to do with it. Like Stanley's out to like better his own life, and he even jokes about like, I could be a superhero and I could fight crime, but what he really does is just like right some wrongs that were like done to him. But I mean, he sodomizes two guys with mufflers, like really bad. Like those guys are having like major internal organ damage at that point, and they just like they wheel them out of the repair shop and you can see the mufflers sticking out of their asses, but they don't like linger on it long enough to let you know like the severity of what that actually is going to do to a person. And I was like, okay, see, there's one of those like rated R things that they snuck in there, but they, there's no blood, you don't see it happening, it just, you see the aftermath of Stanley going in there and doing that. But again, it's like, is Stanley really a nice guy? Like he didn't go in there and just like fix his car or like tie them up. Like he sodomized these two guys violently.
And that's like the first time he's the mask. And it's like, because I've seen this movie so much, the older I grew, the more I realized what he did. Like when I first watched it, there's no way my mind would have known what he had done to them. And as you get older, you're like, oh, that's a really fucked up thing to do. And right off the bat, because it's not like he was later on when he'd already gotten used to the mask's power. It was like one of the first things he did when he realized the powers that he had. It's like, oh, okay, they didn't do you that dirty though. Like, yeah, fine, they're trying to get more money out of you, but you kind of went overboard with that.
Just a smidge.
a little bit. So that's a scene that's wild, and it is very kind of like a flash, and then they don't really talk about it.
I think it's his first night as the Mask too. Like when he first puts it on and goes out, and it's like a dream to Stanley because he doesn't like believe all these things actually happened. But he also, I think, ends up robbing the bank at some point later in that same night.
He does. Yeah.
It's like that first time he put on the mask, it really like unleashed all of like the horrible things inside him that he wanted to do. And, you know, had that gang of, you know, hooligans not gotten out of the way when he whipped out the Tommy gun, there would have been half a dozen dead bodies in the alley as well as those two guys he sodomized. So really kind of you had to reel it in. But I would like to see this character told in a way that allows like the full volume of violence, because now like stuff like Sisu came out this year, John Wick, Deadpool, like you can have these kinds of stories be told by major studios and be violent. Violent Night, which came out at the end of last year as well, where it's like the violence is fun in a way that even though it's brutal, like the brutality sort of makes it funny because of the scenarios and the setting. So I think like now would be a good time, if ever, to remake this. But I wanted to go back to the Coco Bongo because that same scene after Doc bleeds to death in the office, Stanley's downstairs dancing with Dorian's girlfriend of all people. And I believe this is when, and so the goons roll up on him and they want to shoot him. So they all pull out their guns. They just start shooting in the middle of the club. And he's, you know, the Mask. So he's like in cartoon mode, dodging bullets. But my favorite part of that is where he becomes Elvis for a second.
I know.
He gives a quick little like, to each direction and just subtly dodges the bullets. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, that part had me laughing so hard today. And that whole scene and how it gets to the point where like he fakes getting shot and then goes through like the whole dramatic death scene, ends up in the guy's arms, and then again
coughing.
He leans away and the coughs in his face. That scene is fantastic.
So good.
And it really plays into all of Jim Carrey's strengths as a performer, because it lets him be physical, it lets him be funny, but it also lets him sort of ad-lib the scene in a way where you don't expect him to like cough in the guy's face there. And then after he dies, quote unquote, the like the standing ovation from the audience that's breaking the fourth wall. And in that scene, Dorian is like, he's paused because he's freaked out. Like, what's going on? Like, he can't see. He can see the people though, and he stops for a moment and he like fixes his hair because he's like, oh my god, like I'm on camera. And that I was just like, see, the writing there was like so good to be able to like get those characters to actually like act as those characters would in that moment. Like, why is Dorian like not just still trying to kill him there? Because he's freaked out because he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And so like that scene I felt was particularly brilliant. And then of course the Cuban Pete dance number outside of the park. I mean, you could put that on
Oscar
right
worthy.
Yeah. So good.
I sometimes, especially if I'm feeling down, I'll just watch that clip on YouTube because it's just so good. It's one of my favorite musical numbers of all time. I'm not even joking. I love it.
Yeah, it's so colorful and it's so like big in its scale for a movie that really hadn't been that big yet. He comes out of the park and, you know, he's nailing the door shut because the cops had gone in there after him and he had just gotten away, and he turns around and there's, you know, 50 police officers out there, and he starts dancing with them, and they're all kind of frozen too because they're all freaked out, but they're also under this spell that he's casting because he's the Mask. I think there's a point where like he opens somebody else's mouth and uses it like a megaphone in that scene as well. So and the costume he's wearing in that is great too. Like,
it's just, and at that point, it's good. It comes at the best part of the movie, to be honest, because you don't question it. Like all of a sudden, you think this could go either way, where he's going to unleash some sort of madness, and he does, but it's not the madness you think it is. It's, you know, this is Spotlight and then this song and dance and like choreography that's going on, and then they all just bust out into song and dance, and then the scene ends and you're like, okay, we'll just continue on with the movie. But you're like, I'm in this universe, so I'm all for it. And it's just like you mentioned before with the Copacabana, some of that stuff, if this all, I would be interested actually to see the script, because I'm wondering, there's no way, and if it is was fully written that way, good for them, because it's a tight script, but there's for sure a lot of that input was Jim Carrey, because it has him written all over it. All the impressions that he does, you have the Dirty Harry in there. You have even like Sally Field impression out of nowhere. And it's just like, he's just so brilliant at it, and he gets his time to shine, and it's appropriate as opposed to him just doing random impressions. So I like that they were allowing him to just show off what he can do, because that's what people want to see when they go see a Jim Carrey movie, especially in the time in the 90s.
Yeah, and I think this might be as close to the kind of Jim Carrey that we got on in Living Color, because he moves on to do dramatic stuff and we see that, or even in like Dumb and Dumber, like he's dumb but he has a character, right? Like when he's the mask in this movie, it's basically just like you get a clean slate to do whatever you want here, and we're going to trust in your like comedic instincts and your physical ability to pull this off. And unlike what they did with Dorian's character, when he puts on the mask, he looks like he did steroids or something. Like he's got this huge neck, he's got this like chiseled jawline. It makes him this monstrous version of himself, where Stanley, it's like, okay, like he just is wearing the mask, and underneath that, like he's still Stanley. So I think they knew that like we can't hide Jim Carrey. Like we're paying for Jim Carrey. The audience is coming to see Jim Carrey. If you can't tell it's him through the mask, like what's the point of having him in that role? And I think you see it like later in his career as well, where he's the Grinch, and it's a very physical performance. Like I mean, it's Greene as well, but a lot of it is his facial expressions throughout that film. And he's also got a pet dog that he interacts with a lot. So I would not be surprised at all to see like that the people behind writing the Grinch and directing it had seen the mask and were like, okay, we want to take this and kind of like, what if this character was like old and curmudgeon-y and didn't have the superpowers, but yes, like such an iconic, I think, Jim Carrey performance that doesn't necessarily end up getting the same kind of credit as his stuff like Truman Show or Eternal Sunshine, or I mean, he did The Majestic as well, or that did get as well received, but Liar Liar, which is like considered like at the apex of his comedy, or Ace Ventura as well.
Ace Ventura.
So I think this is kind of like a forgotten great performance from him.
Exactly.
And I was so happy to like go back and see it, and also not just have a reason to watch it, but to enjoy it fully without being like turned off by the 30-year gap in between, watching it then and watching it now. I was still able to completely enjoy this and really appreciate what he brought to this movie and to this character, even though it wasn't the kind of rated R violent thing that in my heart I was like, I know that it can be that, even though it's not. Like it still works really well for what it is.
Oh yeah, very much. I was reading just going through the Letterboxd stuff, because sometimes I feel like people, when they're rating on Letterboxd, they're doing it from memory, as opposed to, because it's not like The Mask nowadays is something that I don't even know if you would see it on TV anymore at this point, realistically, and most people won't be revisiting it, so they're remembering it. But one review was like, this is like the Joker if he had a sense of humor. I was like, yeah. But I always wonder, I'm like, what I would be curious, not in a way to be like, oh, you're wrong, but I'm curious what it is that for people who don't like it, what is the reason? Because
That's a good question. We didn't ask. We just saw everybody say that they
Yeah,
didn't
we were
like
like,
it, and we're
"Oh,
like,
okay."
well, we do, so we're gonna record an episode on it, and then we'll see.
Exactly. Because a lot of those people say, "Oh, they love Ace Ventura," and I'm like, but Ace Ventura is even sometimes I think, a little bit more gruesome uh, than The Mask, in the sense of the sense of humor is dirtier, I guess,
Yeah.
if that's the word.
hmm
So I'm wondering what it is about The Mask that they don't like, or if they're just misremembering it, which is fair. Uh, but now I feel like I need to know. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
start demanding
Well, we'll put it into the
answers.
universe, and we'll see. We'll see if we get like horrible feedback. Then we'll know why people didn't like it.
Yeah,
But
exactly. As long as you tell me.
like what I saw with Biodome, the only people that reached out, most people said they liked it. And then same thing with
Yeah.
Drop Dead Fred. I had one guy who was like, "You should just throw that in the garbage." And I was like,
Oh.
"Well, my garbage is a DVD player, so it's going to end up back on the TV one way or the other." Is there anything that we've left out? Do you have something in your notes that you wanted to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet?
I think we covered a lot of it. Kind of just, yeah, going. I guess one of the things I did want to, just because I thought it was funny, one of the henchmen, like
Mhm.
Dorian's henchman, I don't know if you remember it, he's like fully bald, but he has the weird braid at the back of his head.
Oh, is that Nico, his boss, or is that the henchman?
No, it's one of the henchmen, and I just was like, that's
Oh,
a wild
yeah.
look.
He was a villain in a bunch of different things around that era. And for some reason it's like he's not one of the top like listed names in the cast, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But yes, I know the guy that you're talking about, and he played like a similar type thug in other films as well. And he's got the hairstyle. The only other movie that I can think of where it's popular, I think, is Bloodsport, or
Oh, okay.
maybe not
Okay.
Bloodsport, but whatever the other one was that Van Damme did that's basically also Bloodsport, but he
Yeah.
fights Muay Thai with like glass on his hands at the end, and the guy's got the bald head but the braided
Yeah,
ponytail in the back.
it's a look.
Yeah, I mean, I could literally do every Van Damme movie for this show and be totally fine
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I just was like, I thought it was hilarious when I fully noticed, because there's a scene, I guess, outside of the prison where Stanley is, or the jail, and you see the back of his head, and I was like, oh, okay, didn't realize that was hiding back there.
Yeah, there's some other movie that he was in that he played a very similar role, but I can't think of it. Maybe if I find it, I'll message you and I'll be like, you got to see him in this movie because it's the same
Please
thing.
do. Please do. But yeah, I think we covered a lot of it. I think we got into The Mask maybe deeper than most people would go into it, and I love that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot there, and I think that's why I want to see like the page version of it get really brought to life and explore some of the psychology of the character that is like supposedly this nice person, but then like his id is this wild, crazy animal that like doesn't hesitate to hurt people that have wronged him. And so they don't really like dwell on the psychology of that at all. But one of my favorite scenes watching it this time was where he goes to the shrink's office during the day, and he's like trying to
Yeah.
convince him that the mask works, and he's like trying to force it with the mask on his
Yeah,
face.
it's so funny.
That's one of the moments where Jim Carrey gets to like show off his physical acting without having to rely on like the costuming of the mask.
Exactly.
Like wearing the mask itself. Like he's not that character. He's just Stanley in that moment.
Yeah.
But the throes that he goes through in that moment, trying to like prove that he's not crazy, only makes him look more crazy. And that's one of the few things that, Jim Carrey can do that a lot of other guys can't do.
Exactly. So that's why we need him to come for the remake.
Jim, yeah, what is it expired? Can I just like write the sequel for this and give it to somebody and be like, come on?
Exactly, we're ready. It's ready to go.
Not Son of Mask. This will be like Grandpa Mask, but he could pull it off.
Oh yeah, I would not question it.
I mean, if he
I'd be
could
like,
be
I don't
Dr.
care.
Robotnik 2 years ago, like the mask is not that far outside the realm of
Oh yeah,
possibilities for him.
exactly.
There's one other scene where like the writing to me just was very weird. They are Dorian's planning on framing Stanley at this point, and he's like, okay, well, we're not going to kill him. The cops want the mask. We're going to give him the mask. And so they bind and gag him, and then they throw him out of the back of a moving car and like throw him at the police officer who's investigating the case. And the cop just doesn't think that's weird. It's like, oh, you got a rubber mask in your pocket? And he's like, oh, hold on, let me take the duct tape off of your mouth. And it's like, your hands are still tied together. Like, do you think he's turning himself in? Like, I was so confused because up until that point, like, sure, the cop didn't seem like necessarily like the brightest guy, but he didn't seem like he was an incompetent detective up until that point. And he's just like, well, I guess this is the end of the case right here, because this mask that looks nothing like the footage that we have and this guy who showed up hogtied here, you know, that makes total sense. Like some good Samaritan just dropped him off here. Like,
and who is this person? It is a scene. It did stand out to me on this watch too. I was like, that's a weird way to deliver him. Like they could have just dropped him in the street, really. And I guess it's just to speed things up, really.
They needed him in the jail cell to get to the escape scene, and they wanted, which is
also a good scene with Milo.
They wanted the trick with Milo jumping up there, and you know, when the dog's eating that slice of cheese, I'm just like, oh yeah, gotta pay the cheese tax all the time.
Exactly. Milo is definitely one of the best actors in the film.
Yeah, I would have actually liked to see him like spend more time with the mask on. But he's still like very loyal to Stanley, and so he doesn't really do anything crazy. When he's a superpowered dog, he just kind of like, he just pees.
Pees on someone.
Yeah, and he looks scarier. So aside from that, nothing out of the ordinary for a dog.
No, he's a good boy. So.
He's a good boy. We've come to the point in the show where we go to Critics Corner, and now we get to find out how people looked at it then and why some people have given it negative reviews. Although the majority of what I'm looking at is pretty good, although the Metascore is 56. The majority of the reviews here are not bad. There's no zeros like I've done with other movies. There's nothing that's sub 20 here at all. So the first one we're going to go with is Elvis Mitchell from the New York Times. Says an astonishingly lazy and perfunctory effort that does little to realize Carrey's comic potential. And if that's what you took away from this movie, I feel bad for you, Elvis Mitchell. Like, if you think this is one of Jim Carrey's less comedic performances, like, I could understand when he's Stanley and he's just kind of always getting shit on, right? But when he's the Mask, this is as good as Jim Carrey is.
It is Jim Carrey
in his career, I think. So Elvis, I don't know, but he gave it a 30. So when we're wondering like how people perceive things, it's always going to be different. But to go to this movie and to think that the worst part about it that you needed to point out was that this is somehow a lazy performance by Jim Carrey makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm like, this is not, most people don't even do half of that in a performance. I personally couldn't do like 10 minutes of that without being exhausted for the next month. So like, this is the opposite of lazy. That's a wild statement to make. I'm like, did you turn it off maybe like 10 minutes into the film? And that's why you think it's a lazy?
He's like, why are we in the ocean here? What's happening? Okay, I'm done with this. Entertainment Weekly, this is Owen Gleiberman, said the Mask, a rattletrap Jekyll and Hyde farce, surrounds Carrey with a nothing plot and a cast of ciphers. Still, his scenes as the Mask are rowdy and enjoyable. And he gave it a 58. So he's like, okay, the rest of the movie, not so good, but Jim Carrey's still good enough for me to give this something on the positive scale. 58 out of 100, still not great, but at least he acknowledges that Jim Carrey is the reason for that 58.
Exactly.
And I appreciate
which is all
that.
you can ask for. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's see. We've got, you want New Yorker or Chicago Reader? Both of them gave it a 60.
Let's do New Yorker.
The New Yorker. The funniest moment comes when Carrey mimes the effects of the mask without special effects. Okay, so he too is like Jim Carrey's physical acting in this is what makes the movie. I mean, this review has no name attached to it because the New Yorker, as I've noticed, they don't want to put the name of the reviewer up on Metacritic because I'm sure they don't want any backlash. They're like, we don't even want people knowing that we sent somebody to go see The Mask, let alone write a review about it. So we're just going to have a pull quote, and that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
And then let's see, that was 1, 2, 3. So we'll go 2 more. Let's see, Chicago Sun-Times, Rolling Stone, USA Today all gave it 75. So
okay.
pick your poison on that, and we'll go with one of those.
Let's do Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stone, that's Peter Travers. We know that name.
Okay.
Said
Nice.
This gifted clown has found the right vehicle for his souped-up silliness. There you go, Pete. Carrey is the ultimate party dude, and like the masked man says, this party is smoking. So, all right, 75 out of 100. Peter Travers is like, I understand what this movie is. It's a great vehicle for the guy that's in the lead, and when it gets going, it's fun. Perfect. Like, I get it. It's not like a 5-star review, but I guess that's a 3 out of 4 on that system, 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, it's totally good. And then we'll save best for last. And that's Washington Post, also unattributed. It says, Carrey's a human cartoon, and his spontaneous Avery-esque, anything for a laugh outrageousness makes this otherwise blank mask a must-see. So it seems like the majority of critics even still recognize that, well, the movie may fall short in a lot of the surrounding efforts, that Jim Carrey is the movie. And that, like this guy says, it's a must-see for that reason. And I agree with that 100%.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
If there's any reason
for that.
Yeah. I still would like to see maybe that mob stuff punched up to like an R rating and get into some of those characters in the background. Maybe make Nico a threat that's worth fearing. You know,
exactly.
Maybe it's Dorian's friend that was in the river that Jim Carrey jumped in to save, and it's a dead body. And maybe that's why the cops are like, hey, what are you doing in that river?
Yeah.
Just looking at some garbage, just trying to find my mask. It's like, what are you busting his balls for? He's in the river. Who cares?
Exactly. Like, if he wants to be in there, that's his problem. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to hear that at least the sentiment at the time was that this is it's a Jim Carrey movie. They could have even put it Jim Carrey, the mask, Jim Carrey's the mask type of thing. Despite the fact, obviously, it's based on a comic book. But, you know, even thinking of 90s comedians who were all great, I guess another physical one could have been like Robin Williams, but he's not. I'm sure he probably could have done the mask. But it would be a different mask.
Jack instead.
Yeah. But like nowadays, like I was saying, there are some physical comedians, but you know, I just can't imagine anyone apart from Jim Carrey. And that says a lot for, you know, you might not think this is a great movie, but he has created a character that will stick to him forever. He's got a few of those actually. So he's above, you know,
he does.
A lot of actors.
Oh, and it has a 3.3 on Letterboxd as well. So at
yeah,
least
it's
like,
not bad.
Yeah, the people that take time to sit down and review it have been generous and favorable towards it. So that's good to hear. And then we'll have to get the feedback from everybody else that didn't like it that's in the film club. They'll have to let us know their thoughts. I'll do a write-in segment and be like, tell me why you hate The Mask.
Maybe my next free pick will be The Mask.
Oh, make everybody watch it.
And be like, now I need to know. I'm just gonna rip it apart.
I mean, we covered so much, and I mean, you beat me to the punch earlier with giving me a comparable film. So I'm gonna say that Drop Dead Fred is in kind of like the same wheelhouse as this, but maybe check out The Phantom, Billy Zane's movie, where I don't know what it is. Like, I don't really think he's a superhero. He's more like a Batman, where he's got a cave and a secret identity, and he fights crime. maybe The Phantom or The Shadow would be the two that I think are probably in the closest wheelhouse to this that I can think of. So if you like The
Okay.
Mask and you're looking for something else that's kind of like cartoony, I mean, Dick Tracy is also like in that same
Tracy I
realm
thought
of
of
being
too.
very, very colorful, mob oriented, but also you have kind of like a wisecracking guy who wears like a big yellow suit, I think,
Yep.
too. So
Yep.
Dick Tracy, not too far removed. That would be an interesting one for this show at some point. I haven't seen Dick Tracy in a long time, but it's got an amazing cast. It's super colorful, like great makeup, great sets. So I remember a lot about it physically, but yeah, I haven't like sat down with Dick Tracy in many, many years.
Yeah, I actually thought of that movie when I was picking this one. I was like, I'm surprised no one has picked it yet for your show, and I'm sure someone will at some point. Now you've put it out there in the universe, so someone will pick it.
I hope so. If anyone's listening to this and you want to talk about Dick Tracy on this show, you can email me at nick@thesheist.com, or you can reach out to me at Bad Movies We Love on Twitter. I'm there too, and on Instagram now too. So
Nice.
thank you so much for your time. I'm really glad that
Thank you.
we were able to make this work, and
Yep.
especially on short notice. And we were both able to have fun with this movie. And, you know, I think you too had mentioned that like it had been a while. So
Yep.
it's always a risk to like roll the dice and see like, is this movie going to be something that I still like? Because the last
Exactly.
time I saw this, I was like 11 years old. But it's really good to see that the things that I loved about it when I was a kid held up. And
Yeah.
then the
Which is
things
always
that
nice.
I sort of knew from the comics were there actually had some substance to it. So it gave me a little bit more of an enriching experience as an adult as well. And I really had fun with it. And there was a moment where I was watching it and Kristen had come down to take a break and she was sitting on the couch and like she was playing on her phone, but like I look over and I can see her laughing, and then
That's good.
he swallows the TNT
Yeah.
at the end to save Cameron Diaz, and he just like belches out a fireball and says like, "Oh, that was a spicy meatball," and she just like started laughing, and I was like, "See, this is still good, right? It's not just
Yeah.
me. I'm not over here just like laughing for no reason." So it was really great to see that too. I should have just watched it with her from the beginning, but you know, she was working and I wasn't, so
Yeah.
I got to sit on the couch and enjoy it.
No, I feel the same way. It was like I mentioned at the top of the show, I was a little nervous, but it's always such a nice feeling to revisit something as an adult and still have that love for it, because it's not often that happens. So for me, it was just like it was such a fun watch. And I just, you know, as someone who watches a lot of films and some that are not that fun to watch, that I still love, this is just a fun time. And like sometimes you need a laugh, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely. And we've entered like this territory where I've heard a lot of people like we saw Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey
oh yeah.
that came out recently. And so there's this thing that's like don't ruin my childhood by making these movies. And it's like, well, like not everything necessarily from your childhood was great, and that's something that is a question that I challenge a lot on this show, because a lot of it is stuff from the 90s when I was a kid. Like the vast majority of stuff that we've done so far is from the 90s. So it's interesting that that there is this movement to not, what I heard described as, bastardize stuff
Yeah.
from childhood. And for me, it's like, okay, well, number one, like you don't have to watch Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. If this guy wants to make like a horror themed universe with Winnie the Pooh characters, like who cares? He can do that. It doesn't become Winnie the Pooh. Like it doesn't
exactly.
replace what was in your childhood. And then on the other end of that, we get something like The Mask that I think would actually benefit from not necessarily a remake, but a reimagining or a retelling of this character on film, when CGI is better, when there's more of an appetite for adult rated R stuff, because people that are in my demographic are like, hey, we grew up with comic books, and
Yep.
we want to have something like a Deadpool or a John Wick or Sisu available where it's just fun to watch the violence, and the violence isn't presented in a way that is, I mean, I was going to say graphic, but it is very graphic.
Yeah,
So
I know what
it's
you mean, though.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
presented in a way that is
It's not very
like,
realistic.
yeah, it's hyper realistic, so it's
Yeah.
easy to dismiss it as
Exactly. Yeah.
something that's not real. And I think, you saw that in the early Sam Raimi Evil Dead movies, where it's like, okay, this is a horror
Yes.
movie, but like most of the time, if you had like a fire hydrant filled with blood gushing into your mouth, it would be this disgusting thing. But like,
Yeah.
it's funny because of how ridiculous it is. And
Exactly.
so
Yep.
it's like the appetite, I think, has come around, or at least people in my age demographic have gotten to the point where we're willing to see that and entertain that and spend money on it. And I mean, Deadpool was really palatable for a whole generation of kids as well. Like when I
Oh,
saw
yeah.
Deadpool, I was like, wow, there's a bunch of kids under 10 here, and this guy's getting,
Yeah.
he's getting pegged over here. So I was like, this is a little much for kids, but so thinking about the mask and seeing how he shoved the tailpipes up these guys' tailpipes
Yeah.
was something that I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I think the humor has a place to work now. And maybe, you know what, just don't like ruin this Jim Carrey the Mask by like reinventing it. So maybe that's something, but it's an interesting character and an interesting story that I think could benefit now.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I'll leave it. I won't say that it needs to be remade, but if you're going to remake things, maybe leave White Men Can't Jump alone and
Yes,
remake something that
please.
has legs.
Exactly. Something that could, as you said, reimagine as opposed to necessarily a remake. But yeah, it doesn't need to, but I think it could be great if they in the right hands. So, and I hope Jim Carrey does it.
Yeah.
Even
if
though
somebody
he
has the
won't.
power to make that happen. I know Jim Carrey's not going to listen to this, but maybe somebody that knows Jim Carrey might listen to this. I don't know. Is Jim Carrey? He's Canadian. Is he
He's
from Toronto
Canadian.
though?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's originally from Toronto, but I think he did grow up in Toronto area. But he's lived in the States forever. So
All right.
I think he's dual citizen now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
maybe someone from Toronto that's going to listen to this because of you that you know from film school. I don't know. Maybe we'll luck out in like a couple years and we'll see Mask 2 with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, there's a very small population in this country, so someone I know knows him. Probably.
All right. Well, you gave me hope. I'm gonna end on that note and believe that it's possible that it can happen.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Again, thank you so much for joining me and for bringing this movie in particular to the table. I had so much fun watching it again, and I'm gonna see if Krista wants to watch it again because she seemed to enjoy the few minutes of it. And if nothing else, maybe I'll just put on the Cuban Pete dance number again and watch that.
Just show. I'm gonna watch it right after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks once again to Felicia for making the time to talk to me about a movie from our childhood that we both love dearly. You can catch her on Twitter at Cinemaroni. That's Cinema Roni, R-O-N-I. And my sincerest thanks to all of you who took the time to listen to this episode. I know your time is valuable and you have a lot of options when it comes to your podcast. So if you spent that time with us, I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can reach me at nick@thesheist.com, or you can reach out to me at Bad Movies We Love on Twitter for the time being, and that's Bad Movies We Love with a L-U-V. This show is an extension of thesheist.com, and the podcast is recorded, edited, mixed, produced right here in the home studio by yours truly. So until next time, stay safe, be well, and have fun, no matter how you get your movies.